Hi, this is Eric Chase, afternoon host for Cumulus Media Toledo's Q105, and your host for what will be a very quick and informative episode of 68 Words. Not the usual heartwarming or inspiring stories that we typically share here with our guests and conversations. This is Brett Harbage, the ADA coordinator in the office of the Ohio Secretary of State, as we are on the precipice of Election Day. So let's get right to it.
People, places, and spaces doing disability differently, sharing firsthand experience in our podcast. Inspired by the 68 words that sparked the disability rights movement. Learn where it started and what's next. Hi, my name is Stuart James, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Ability Center, and welcome to 68 Words.
We'll thank Brett Harbage, the ADA coordinator in the office of the Ohio Secretary of State, for taking a couple of minutes as the seconds tick off the clock for Election Day coming up here real fast. Hi, Brett. Thanks for taking some time. Can you talk about the significance of making sure this election across the state is accessible as possible?
Well, I mean, I think, regardless of, which election it is, we work year round. And when I say we, myself here at the Secretary of State's office, and then all 88 county boards of elections work, to make sure that elections are accessible for people with disabilities in the state of Ohio. We want them to have, the same opportunity to vote as anybody else. So, we work to make sure polling locations are accessible year round and make sure that, poll workers are ready for people with disabilities to come in and vote on Election Day.
Can you talk about some of those measures that you have taken as opposed to in years past, whether it was 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and how things have changed, and also how you educate the poll workers to make things helpful? Because I know a lot of those people are maybe older or just volunteers, and they're not in the program regularly. So how do you get them trained up?
Yeah, I mean, we work, like I said, I work with all 88 county boards of elections, but every election, the election officials at the county level train their poll workers, with everything they need to know, from understanding ID requirements to getting people the right ballot. But we've had some instances here recently where people with disabilities have had some issues going in to cast their ballot. So, here recently, just in Franklin County and also Cuyahoga County, we've done some extra training with their trainers that train the poll workers. So, brought in some friends of ours from the National Federation of the Blind in to kind of do some training with them, hands-on, teaching the poll workers, how to assist somebody who's visually impaired or blind, and then also, how to use each polling location has accessible equipment there. So the poll workers need to know and understand how those machines function and how people with disabilities use those features to, basically cast their ballot privately and independent like anybody else does. So
you mentioned working with someone with sight impairment. How do those machines, can you give an example of how they work if someone is sight impaired or blind?
Yeah, for example, in Cuyahoga County, the majority of people vote on a paper ballot, so that's obviously not accessible to somebody who's blind. So what the machines do is they take that ballot and they make it audio. So instead of seeing a ballot and reading that myself, a person who's visually impaired would hear that. So it's going to read the ballot to them, and then they can mark their ballot privately and independently on that machine, and then the machine will, print that ballot out, and then they can scan it in just like anybody else would. So that machine also, if you don't want to use the audio ballot, maybe you're just visually impaired, can zoom in on the ballot, or it can change the contrast of the screen to make the screen dark and then the print light, or vice versa. That helps people who are visually impaired be able to see that ballot better. So.
Any other issues that you can think of that have come up for people with a disability, or have found things inaccessible that you see as a success story, or maybe an initiative that you'd like to work on moving forward?
The other thing that we deal with on a regular basis is obviously, making sure polling locations are accessible on Election Day. So, that has everything to do with having accessible parking to an accessible route, making sure entrances are accessible, making sure people can navigate, throughout that polling location inside. So, we've had issues where, maybe Board of Elections in a county didn't set up a temporary equipment that needs to be set up. So, we work to ensure that, if a polling location doesn't have parking, that Board of Elections sets up temporary parking using temporary equipment. And that way a person with a disability can access those polling locations on Election Day. So, obviously there's a lot of polling locations around the state of Ohio.
Sure.
On Election Day, and there's a lot of, equipment that needs set up. So, we want to make sure that those locations are ready to go for Election Day and ready for people with disabilities to be able to come in there and vote. So,
do you ever connect with local transportation authorities to assist? I know here we have TARDA, and they're quite good about offering rides, at least as far as general public transportation, getting people to and from polls. Do you ever connect with the transportation authorities in the different counties?
We don't. Obviously, there's people with disabilities, just like any other voter, they have responsibilities as well. So we kind of leave that up to, the people with disabilities to figure out their mode of transportation on Election Day if they need public transportation to set that up and get to the polls. So, that's one of the things when I go out and talk to people with disabilities and in different groups, that is more of, they have rights and responsibilities as well. So, and that's one of the things that we kind of talk to them about is, making sure they have transportation to get there on Election Day. So kind of leave that up to the people with disabilities to figure that out.
Sure. One of the things that we say on this podcast often, it's something that came up in one of our disability awareness experiences with someone, with a woman who doesn't have an arm and a shoulder. Said, I do the same thing as everybody else. I just do it a little differently. And it sounds like that's the motto when encouraging people with a disability to get out and vote. It sounds like you're juggling a lot of balls. Like, it sounds like you use a couple other arms to get all these details lined up for such an important day and something important through the year. What are the best practices, other than maybe honing in on the details, that you remind yourself of, your staff, and maybe could pass along to other states and places?
I think, we like to definitely collaborate and engage the disability community when we can. For example, going back to that training that I did with Cuyahoga and Franklin County, bringing a person in who is, visually impaired is the best way to teach people about somebody that's visually impaired. So, we do that a lot. We try to collaborate with the disability community. Also, we like to, have that hands-on approach with election officials. So, myself as a disability or the ADA coordinator for the Secretary of State's office, I go out and I work with the county boards of elections and one-on-one and provide hands-on training for them. So, they can get a really good feel about, how to do an accessibility assessment on a polling location versus just kind of talking to them about it. Mm-hmm. So, those are a couple of things that we try to do, and we would encourage other states to collaborate with the disability community and also do hands-on one-on-one training if that's possible, and really teach these election officials how to assist a person with a disability and or do an accessibility assessment on a polling location, so that way it's accessible on Election Day. So,
last question. I guess this advice is general for anybody, whether you have a disability or not, to anybody that wants to vote. Don't wait till the last minute to figure out where you got to go. Are you registered? All that stuff. What are some places people can go to find out information like that? And if someone does have a disability, maybe it's easier for them, it's better off for them to do a mail-in vote or something like that. What are the logistics and details for those?
Yeah, well, a couple things. As far as a resource, voteohio.gov is our website. There's a ton of information on there. Anything from finding out, you can plug in your name and address and find out where your polling location is, because on Election Day, you have to go to your polling location based on your address. There's also information on there about just if you need to call your county board of election, look up that information. If you're looking for, different ways to vote, there's information on our website as well about, the options for voting. Whether you're going to go down to your county board of elections and vote early. There's a few more days to do that here for this election coming up. You mentioned a little bit about, voting by mail. It's a great way for, a person with a disability to vote is to get a ballot in the mail and then send that back to your county board of election. And then again, if you go to voteohio.gov, you can find out, all the information about your address, and that information is available on our website. So
I'm guessing the site is quite accessible as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the ADA coordinator, so I work with the counties, but we also have a digital accessibility coordinator. So we want to make sure that our website's accessible and any information on there is accessible to people with disabilities. So, that's a whole other aspect of accessibility, is making sure things are accessible digitally.
Sure.
So,
this has to be your busiest handful of days of the year. Would that be accurate?
Well, I feel like we're busy all year round, but, obviously getting ready and preparing for an election that's quickly approaching is a busy time. So not only for our office at the state level, but, county boards of elections are, finishing up training and getting ready to deploy equipment and obviously making sure their poll workers are lined up for election day. So it's definitely a busy time. So it's
like your Super Bowl.
Yeah, I feel like it's one right after another, though. There was a statewide August election. Now this November election's coming up. So it's just been a busy year for elections.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for doing what you do. Brett Harbage, the ADA coordinator in the Office of the Secretary of State. I don't know if I say good luck, have a great weekend, have a great election day. So I'll just say thank you for what you do, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
All that's good. So thanks for allowing me to come on and talk a little bit about the election coming up.
This is Chief Armstrong with Toledo Fire and Rescue. 68 Words has been a production of the Ability Center, hosted by Cumulus Media's Eric Chase, and executive produced by Mallory Crooks. If you, your group, organization, or business is interested in hosting a disability awareness experience or have other inquiries, please contact info@abilitycenter.org. Until next time, think differently. Think differently.